Now we will just try to sum up a bit of the discussions we had in the different groups, and we definitely had a very interesting discussion about audience development and diversity. A lot of different points on that, and maybe you would like to say something about what we talked about, or is that too dangerous? Yeah, I was there as well. No, but the main point was maybe that should the cultural institutions at all be concerned about these? Or maybe they should be concerned, but should they do these kind of things? Should they try to make these kind of audience developments and try to bring diversity into the theatre, or is the whole theatre setting, the whole institutional setting, not counterproductive to facilitating or producing these kind of new or different expressions within the cultural field? I think that was more or less the main point.
Yeah, we talked about the audience development. Yeah, I talked about it. That audience development, the way it's being portrayed in the cultural policy sense, is kind of a conundrum. It doesn't really add up, because on the one hand, you have to say it very bluntly. On the one hand, institutions are being asked or demanded of them to bring in a wider set of audiences, but they shouldn't really change anything. They should do it in the same way as they've always done, because terms like quality comes up, and this is at least in a Norwegian context, that you need to develop more audiences, but more audiences in from other social spheres, parts of society, but it must not compromise quality. Now, quality is, of course, not deconstructed. In policies, speech, you just use the word quality without necessarily applying the meaning to it. But the way I interpreted it, at least, that it must not threaten a traditional understanding of the autonomy of the arts, that art production must take place in the same way as it always has. And, emphasis on excellence.
Yep. And you?
Well, we actually also ended up talking a lot about audience development, and a lot of.
You should have come and joined us.
You should have joined us. Yeah. We talked about a lot of things. I think it's very difficult to conclude, and we didn't really. I don't know if we concluded anything.
But I think the main thing, the perspective we talked about was from the artistic point of view, and that was kind of interesting, because we talked a lot about the dialogue, the artistic dialogue in it, and actually I would like to ask some of the other guys who were there what they got out of it. Yes, but could you say something?
Yeah. From my point of view as an artist, I don't think I don't see it as a threat that you have to somehow be in dialogue with your audience. It can never be like that. What we do in the arts is making this dialogue, is talking from our position to other members of the human race, to be elevated about it. But then again, I'm not an institution. What I see in Denmark is that if, as you say, the institutions, they are demanded to do this kind of work with audience development, it's very not pretty. They don't have the skills. Maybe they have the skills to do theatre, concert, symphonic music at a very excellent level, But when they try to do things like this, audience development, it's not. It's a rare. It's seldom very pretty. But I think it's important that they are asked to do it, so they eventually, perhaps, develop skills around it.
I think that is a very good point. Two things to say about that. First, I took my students to see the director of the Oslo Philharmonic Orchestra and talk to her about leadership. And she's newly taken over. She's been in the post for less than 6 months. And she says that we're going to scrap all that stuff. We're going to concentrate on what the outreach stuff. Because they've done some outreach concerts in suburbs and what have you. You know, we're amateurs when it comes to it. And we're also amateurs in the digital, which is maybe a bit more worrying actually, but we're amateur when it comes to digital dissemination. So what we're going to do, we're going to play in a big concert hall and make brilliant music and not try to do much more than that and try to get people in. When it comes to not being geared up for it, talking about the big institutions, and I stress to say now that I don't know whether the Brits are succeeding either. So I don't think anyone is really succeeding in breaking audience barriers, but at least in the UK they try. I used to work at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and they have an education department of these 10 members of staff. The symphony orchestras has typically education departments working with schools, working with different types of groups, what have you. I mean, there's not matched, at least in Norway. Norwegian National Theatre doesn't have anything like that, as far as I know. So there, I think it's a big. That's why I said initially they don't even try. I think that it is a conundrum, this, because on the one hand there's a discourse saying that, you know, theatres needs to create more audiences and what have you, but I do think it's on a discursive level. I don't think it really lies so much power behind it, and I think that the big institutions, at least, just continue to do what they've always done. And as long as it works, fine. And as long as they don't run into red numbers, no one really bothers, I think, really.
But they eventually will run into a lack of politics to make funds for that.
Sorry, say it again. No, I'd like to hear.
Okay, I think they will run into, in every sense of the word, red numbers. If they don't try to open up to an audience, they will eventually lose the political will to fund big institutions.
I don't agree on that it's not possible to expand audiences, and I think it's done a lot of work on that. And I feel in our group there were several examples, and it has very much to do with place. That you have to feel at home. And if you go to a new place, my daughter is in classical music. She was very proud that Distortion had a classical stage this year, as Roskilde has. I'm myself at Malmö Opera, was expanded to children from immigrants very much, and succeeded, not very much, but they are succeeding. I think also the Denmark's radio are also trying to get a young audience, and it's very much about to move to new places. We had also Granhøj. You came to a new stage. There's a new audience. So I very much think it's important. As you say, we won't get funding in the long run if we don't get new audiences, and we can do it.
No, that's good attitude.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else wants to say
Jeg
something?
synes, du skal lade Palle sige noget. Palle, skal du ikke sige noget om... Er du
Hvad skal du?
Hvad skal jeg sige om? I'm just asking Palle to talk about how he works with audience, because I think it's quite an interesting case story. About you, no communication department, you know.
Yes. Yes. First of all, the story that you mentioned, Granhøjland, which is a small dance company in Aarhus. We have been touring our own city. First, we performed with success in our own place, which has around 100 seats, and we did a lot of performances. Then we were invited to the dance states in the same town and performed there four times with 200 seats. Then afterwards, it was over some years. Then we were invited for the concert hall, the Opera House, and they sold, there was 1,000 seats and they sold 800. And now in September we will perform at the Art Theatre, where they have 750 seats, and we are going to perform the same performance there 3 times. So that's also a way, like you said, we go to the same performance performed in different stages. And the other one, Susanne, is that Carnodans has existed for 25 years now. I'm the artistic director. I have no PR department. We do not use one penny on advertisement, and we are getting more and more audience because we have arranged a club where people can, but it's not like a club in Superbusen or where we sell for nothing, but it's a club where people can join, and then I ask them to help. So they like to help, and the members of the club is increasing. Now we have almost 4,000 members, and we have more and more audience. And I don't do nothing. I just ask them to help. So they want to help.
No, you communicate with them. The point is that you artistically communicate with them.
I try to.
Yeah. Exactly what you were talking about also, I guess. He's actually doing this from an artistic point of view.
I see from what I heard from you and what I'm hearing from from Aarhus, it seems I mentioned I seem to see that that the Danish theatres are more innovative, I think, and have come further in their audience work than the Norwegians. It's my sort of anecdotal observation, without sort of just by listening to what I'm hearing here today.
And also the example that you give, Pal, is also a very good example of, we talked a little bit about that thinking co-creation far beyond just a co-creation with another production partner, but also co-creating with your audience, co-creating with the city you're in, doesn't really have any limits. So that in a way it still has the core of the artistic work, but it's expanding beyond the project itself, the way you think about co-creation.
Listening to the discussion in the past hour, if you take away the word theater from the discourse and substitute Catholicism and the church, there's a crisis in the United States in Catholicism and the church. And the language that's being used here is exactly the language that was being used in evangelical contexts, in which churches felt that they had lost their population. People weren't coming to their venues. Rome had stopped giving them subsidies. They had stopped sending people over to administer spiritual discourse. And then they decided to make some radical changes in the 60s, which was to become more popular, to get rid of Latin, and then to begin to do site-specific religion, to come out into the streets, to do parades, to do processions, to do pop music. And I throw that out because there's something very imperialist about that, which I think has been brought up by people here in various ways, a kind of appropriating and a kind of violence in the guise of co-collaborating with others. And I just say this to be provocative. Maybe theater at the moment is not at the center of what is happening or where the expressive possibilities are. And to take that as, if we look historically, where different kinds of media take precedence or move into the center at different periods of time, theater is just not there right now. I throw that out as a provocation. That's all.
Can I? Okay, there are some things guess about the relevance of art. Like you were saying, you're not worried that art will ever not exist. And then Annika was talking about thing, I think, where there was this acute problem, and the suffering was so great that people naturally created art and consumed art. And this is true that, I mean, art does have a function in our welfare, for our personal well-being. And this is felt a lot more in countries where there's like a big problem and death is in front of your face, be it from hunger or from war or whatever. People naturally consume art. But I think that in places like, for example, Scandinavia, there's a silent death. There's depression. People die here of depression. And art, in fact, can help. And here I think that there is, you know, in the same way that governments say you have to send your children to school, you have to pay taxes. There are things which are obviously for our benefit, but we don't do them. Or, you know, the majority of humanity won't do it unless there was a law, unless there was somebody governing it. And this also has to do with art and how to consume art. So if you don't teach people how to consume art or how to use this tool, they won't know. And for me, this is the problem here in Denmark. People do not know how to look at something which is abstract. They just don't have the tools, and you have to give them those tools.
Right. Yeah, because I'm actually following a little bit up for you, because maybe Wayne is right that we don't need the theatre as the kind of depiction of the institution that reproduce a certain picture of society that we are seeing in many of the big institutions. But I think we certainly need the artists, the theatre artist, the performing artist, because what we do need in society today is what you're also talking about. We need the artistic tools, we need the creativity, and we were talking about it in our group and also when we were in Aarhus, that the artistic spirit core is a question also like sinking into time, or allowing yourself to be slow and allowing yourself to be at a now, at a certain point where actually new ideas come and new creativity come. And that quality of existence is in very much need in the time that we are living it at the moment. And so I really strongly believe that this artistic spirit is needed, and that it's a powerful tool to transform our society if we take it seriously. And we were talking about this as a group also, that I think it's a responsibility of the artist to express this field. You know, you have to, as artists, go into this expressing what is that nothingness of creativity. What is the field that the ideas spring from? Because this is what we need to survive in the future, I think.
And then, Iggy, last comment?
Yeah, I have a comment to your request for a kind of what you're talking about is really a cultural competence in a way. You know, I think that what you're worried about, I say that I'm not worried about creativity and art. What we understand, what we understand by art and what is art is fluid and changes. I think you are worried about a threat to a universal valuation of art, because when you're talking about that kids, for example, should learn a certain curriculum, it's a kind of authority that you're missing, and an authority that sort of a canonized authority almost. You know, if you cannot understand a modernist abstract painting, you are missing something. Or maybe if you don't understand atonal music, you are missing something. But I think I'm not worried. I mean, in Norway there is actually a program for that, because we have something called the Kulturelle Skolesekken, the cultural rucksack, which we've had for 10 years, which brings arts into schools, so that kids get to appreciate or get exposed to arts on a regular level. I mean, not every week, but more than once a year. But it's not art history. It's being exposed to what's happening right now. It would be interesting to see what kind of impact that will have on those kids and whether they sort of become appreciative of art in the future when they grow up. That no one has researched that yet. But I think what is art? The artists who come out to the academies now, they work in a completely different way from the artists who came out with the academies in the 60s. And they're working with different medias, and let's face it, the borders between what we call popular culture and art, or professional high art, or whatever you want to call it, is blurring. As I'm sure you can see, lots of examples of this festival that this program is part of. So I don't share your worry. I think new forms of creativity will crop up in different forms, and the art landscape might look very different in 10 years or 50 years from now. But that's just the way it is.
Can I just quickly answer that when I said that you should educate people in art, that doesn't mean a certain form of art. That doesn't mean to appreciate a certain form. You just have to understand the principles behind it. It's about the principles that art gives, this opening your soul.
But those, yeah.
And this can be done in many different ways, and this changes. The actual form of art changes. But the principle of art doesn't, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay, we'll have to close the discussion now. It's 3 o'clock. We all have to die at some point, so we have to stop now. But thank you very much for coming, and thank you to Egil and Sarah, and also to Ellen for. And enjoy the rest of the festival. And if you have any questions about the Danish Theatre Association, you can direct them to me or Ellen or to Loa, who's sitting there, who's our secretary. But thank you very much to NPAD and no, not NPAD. Okay, and NPAD for hosting this event for us. So thank you very much.
And just to mention it once again, I try to that we're actually streaming the sessions that we are doing. And you will be able to see them at the YouTube channel of Dansk ITI. When, Jens, will they be?
Well, Facebook er det der på nu.
You're reporting on Facebook now, okay. So it's possible to go back and see what's been discussing in these sessions.
Oh shit.